Welcome, this is Philip Koerper. Pleased to be with you here today on September 11th, 2018. This is episode 31 of the Philip Koerper Show. I've been thinking a lot about 9/11, and when that day happened, I was post call that day, and I was taking our van to the shop to get like the tires rotated, and I heard on the radio that a plane had crashed into a building in New York City. And I remember thinking, I was a small private plane, probably some airplane crash accident or a little suicide situation, small aircraft. It was really kind of shocking kind of news, but I had no idea really at that time how grave that was. I went into the hospital to look at some of my patients, and that's when I saw things unfolding on TV. It was very devastating. I remember walking that evening in Montana and looking up in the sky, and there was no airplanes at all. We were in flyover country, no contrails, no aircraft, very quiet, very somber, very sad, lots of pain, lots of angst, not knowing exactly what was going on, especially initially. We didn't know how many planes had been hijacked. The planes were all commanded to be on the ground. I remember President Bush immediately said, we're at war. I had no idea really at that time what he was talking about. And later he did speak to the nation and talked about the quiet anger that we had. It was very somber part of my life, a very sad day, one of the saddest days of my life. And for, I'm sure, most Americans. President Trump today went out to the monument out in Pennsylvania where the fourth plane had crashed. That plane was delayed like 45 minutes. That turned out to be a terrible thing, but a good thing, because those passengers on that plane, through talking on the phone with their loved ones, found out about the other planes that were crashed on purpose. And so with that knowledge, they rushed the cockpit, and the terrorists overturned that plane and crashed it. So 2,900 people in 77, 2977 was the number of people who were killed on that day. And if you include the 6 people who had died earlier in a World Trade Center attack where the bomb was placed underneath in the parking garage, 6 people were killed with that attack. And so that is the number, 2,983 is the number of names, I believe, which is on the National 9/11 Memorial in New York City, where their names are arranged around the 2 footprints of the World Trade Center, North and South Towers. It's a time that we reflect upon radical Islamic terrorism, how these terrorist people are at war with the West, and this has gone on for centuries. This conflict where they do not want us to exist, and they are at war with us. And so grateful for those people who sacrificed their lives on that day, especially the first responders, and how they were going up those stairs when everyone else was going down in those towers. So I've been reflecting a lot upon that this day, and reliving some of the moments of that day and how unsettled I was at that day. I did receive some comfort. The leader of our church at that time was President Hinckley, and in October, first weekend in October, I believe it was, is when we attacked Afghanistan, and the war pretty much started publicly. And I remember our prophet talking about it. It started like in between a break in our general conference meetings. And after the break, he mentioned to the audience of the church, basically to the whole world, that the war had begun. And he shared some of his thoughts about that. And I did get a peace inside that everything was going to be okay, that we'd be able to defeat this enemy, and basically God was on our side. And so that was very comforting for me. I really liked these comments of Ronnie Floyd, which was published in Fox News today. 4 things I'm thankful for this 9/11. He talks about brave men and women willing to die for the sake of others. It makes this nation so great. And he quotes John 15:13, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." I still tear up when I watch these videos. Even on my run this morning, I was listening to a news story of a mom. Her son was on the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania, and he said that he loved her. He used his full name when he introduced himself to his mom. He was using like that, one of those phones in the back of the plane. And he said that their plane had been hijacked and that there was a bomb on board. And he told his mom how much he loved her. Very touching stories of Americans with incredible courage and valor. And I like how Ronnie Floyd mentions how grateful he is. He talks about the solidarity of Americans. When President Bush was on that scrap pile in New York City and someone shouted out of the audience, we hear you. And then President Bush said, "We hear you. The whole world hears you. And soon the people who knock down these buildings will hear us." That was going to be justice, not this blind rage of hate that we have. But President Bush mentioned on that day this quiet sense of hatred. We do these vicious attacks do stir up quite the negative feelings in us, and feelings of justice and punishment for those people who commit incredible crimes. America was so united. I remember we were putting American flags on our cars. American flags came out in front of our homes, lapels on our suits. There were American flags everywhere. It was a very unifying. And even politically, Democrat and Republican came together after that, which is good. There's going to be, with politics, there's always going to be division there. With different types of ideas being pushed and pulled. But it was a very unifying time to be in America. Security and protection of the United States is what also mentioned by Ronnie Floyd. And then a perfect peace in the middle of the hardship. And I mentioned that to you. I felt the same way, that God was going to bless us. We just tried so hard to be good and to be righteous. And so I really like that. So yes, in the National September 11th Memorial in New York City at the World Trade Center sites, 2,977 people were killed in the terror attacks on September 11th, 2001. And then 6 people were killed at the World Trade Center bombing in February of 1993. And so those are the people who are honored at that site. The terrorists are not honored nor counted in that number. I want to talk a little bit about some of the new things, switching gears, with the Bob Mueller probe. Rush Limbaugh, I think, was making a really good point today about how unconstitutional this probe is. And too bad more Republicans won't stand up for this at this time. But the three groups of government, the judiciary, the executive branch, and Congress, they're all three independent of each other. Okay, President Trump can't just order people, the FBI, like to go arrest, Clarence Thomas or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. No, these are separate powers, and they really don't have a very limited power with each other. They're three separate entities, and they're protected from each other. It's very, very important. So if Congress gets mad at the president, they can't just throw him in jail. No, really, the only thing they can do is impeach him and convict, and then boot him out of office. They can't really, he is protected from them. So this probe, this Bob Mueller probe, is really, I think, a scary thing. And to have Bob Mueller just digging around, basically harassing President Trump and his administration, raiding people's offices and doing these things is really a travesty. And to allow this happen is, I blame both parties, Republicans and Democrats. So this is probably a little bit out of control in Bill Clinton's time. So I think that's really illustrative. There are now, according to Mark Meadows, Republican from North Carolina, he is raising these grave concerns about some of the members of the FBI and how they were talking about. Mark Meadows says there's these new documents suggest a coordinated effort on the part of the FBI and DOJ to release information in the public domain potentially harmful to President Donald Trump's administration. And so he quotes these two texts from Peter Strzok. So this is April 10th, 2017. So this is after the election. Peter Strzok contacts Lisa Page to discuss a media leak strategy. Specifically, the text says, I had literally just gone to find this phone to tell you I want to talk to you about media leak strategy with DOJ before you go. Okay, and then 2 days later, Peter Strzok congratulates Lisa Page on a job well done while referring to two derogatory articles about Carter Page. In the text, Strzok warns Page two articles are coming out, one which is worse than the other, about Lisa's namesake. Strzok added, well done, Page. Okay, so right when this was coming out, there were these other examples of Carter Page and the Pfizer warrant. So it really looks like these members of the FBI set this up. They leaked this information to the media, then the media will report on it, and then the FBI will use these media reports as proof to go to a FISA judge to go, hey, look, Carter Page is dealing with the Russians. Carter Page is affiliated with Donald Trump. Therefore, we think we have collusion. So this really looks like this was all in the fix, okay, that this was really a setup job. This is very unfair to Donald Trump. I wanted to move on. And so anyhow, I think it's just so important, before I move on, to illustrate how this Mueller investigation with the DOJ and with the FBI, I mean, there are so many different things that we're finding out that looks like there was basically this deep state, these people in the FBI, in the DOJ, who were really unhappy that President Trump won the election, and they were really trying to overthrow that. I mean, Maxine Waters was even talking today, and I want to jump to that. Let's see. Maxine Waters is talking about impeaching Trump, and then she was asked, well, everyone else, people don't want you to talk about impeaching Trump. And he goes, impeach, impeach, impeach. And then they go, well, what happens when we have Mike Pence? And she goes, oh, we'll take care of him in due time. Okay? We're not going to let these people interrupt, like our lives and stuff. I mean, it's like no concept of a republic that we live in and the democracy and the voting that we choose our head of state through elections, and that they are head of state for 4 years unless they're impeached or something else happens. I mean, totally oblivious to the rule of law, to the Constitution, how America works. She really is amazing. I wanted to move on I got into this debate with some friends at work over building the wall. And they would make arguments against building the wall. Number one, they said it was like a boondoggle, was too expensive. And I almost laugh when I hear this response. Many, especially from the left. I mean, when is the left, not excited about spending federal government money? I mean, $1 trillion for Obamacare was like no big deal to them at all, or the taxes that had to be increased to pay for it. And so, I mean, for them to use the argument that it's too expensive really cracks me up. They also used the argument that the drug people would just get around the wall. And, to some point that might be true, but I think of the wall in Israel, and I use this. I mean, the wall in Israel, people are not getting past this wall, okay? Israel is very intent on defending their border, especially with the Palestinian refugees. And I think this wall, and from what I've read and what I've seen, it looks very, very effective. So if America wanted to prevent people from coming across the wall, our southern border, we could do that. It takes a lot of resources. I do admit to that. But this concept of building a wall is something that President Trump ran on. And it was very popular amongst his voters, including myself. And so we have this sense, this feeling that this border is not being protected and that many people are coming across. And we are right about this. This is an article from Breitbart. 100 Bangladeshi nationals apprehended near Texas border in 3 weeks. Okay, we have people from Iran who are being apprehended down there. Okay, I mean, this could be a concern for our security sakes. So I think President Trump is right. I don't think he's racist by talking about defending our southern border, and that we want legal immigration, not illegal immigration. Okay. And also, so I think building the wall, President Trump is saying that part of it's being built, that we're securing the border better. I have a friend who works for the Border Patrol, and so these things are happening. I mean, to President Obama's credit, Bernie Sanders did not like how many people he was deporting from the United States. He was really mad, I think, in 2015 with President Obama for separating families from their children. Okay, the same things. So President Obama was putting in jail some of these people who are breaking the law there. My friends were talking about coming across the border and then seeking for asylum. There are 8 places in Mexico alone where you can go into a United States embassy type of places and to file for asylum. We really need a merit-based immigration system. I know people here in America want cheap labor. I know there's some jobs that people really won't even work for, okay? I know, though, with capitalism, if you pay people enough money, they will work. So I know the Republicans love all the cheap labor, and I know that the Democrats like all the votes, and so I do want some kind of compromise between the two parties on this. But building a wall and defending the laws that we have now makes total sense to me, okay? And I think it's a very popular thing, but the left is really against that. That also reminds me of a debate with one of my friends about California. And I think I brought this up earlier, and he was saying that there's some kind of middle step here about voting for illegals voting in California. I went to a Snopes.com. Okay, Snopes, I have found this to be a fairly liberal interpretation on many different things. And so if you look at Snopes, did California pass a law allowing undocumented immigrants to vote in federal elections? Okay, so they report this as a mixture. Okay, so this is what they say is true. California has implemented a law providing for the automatic voter registration of motorists who obtain or renew driver's licenses. And critics contend that the law will make it easier for non-citizens to unlawfully vote. Okay, what is false? California has not implemented a law authorizing non-citizens to vote in federal elections. So not in federal elections, and if you look at the very bottom of the article, it does say in November 2016, the California city of San Francisco did pass a ballot proposition allowing some non-citizens to register to vote in local school board elections only. Okay, well, this is a slippery slope. San Francisco is already saying that some non-citizens can vote in a school board election. But California has not meant, and there is not a law that illegal aliens can vote in the federal election, okay? But this is what they have done, okay? Some 605,000 undocumented immigrants, okay? I really don't think they're immigrants. I think they're illegal aliens, but they're going to use some euphemisms here, who live in California and were granted driver's license. Okay, so these people either came here with their visas to be students or to work and stuff, and those visas expired and they overstayed their visas. Okay, so they lied. Okay, they promised to go back to their country of origin. So they lied and they stayed here. Okay, the other people snuck across the border illegally, okay, breaking our laws. Okay, these are the people we're talking about here. And so they were granted driver's license in 2015. Okay, and then they expect by 2016, so they got these people all ready for the election, that soon there'll be 1.4 million people will get their driver's license under the law by late 2017. Okay, so California is giving people their driver's license. And so what happens with this new Motor Voter Act is that by default, they are registered to vote. Okay, and I've gone to the website. So when you go in, you're undocumented, you're an illegal alien, California, you pass the driver's test, California will give you a driver's license. And then you're automatically signed up to vote. Okay, now what you have to prove, what you have to do there is there's a checkbox on the online voter registration system, and you have to check that you are a citizen, okay, that you were born here. I mean, you just write this stuff in. I see nothing in there that requiring any kind of documents for those things to do, and so this is automatic registration, okay. And so I wanted to read here this quote from Judge Andrew Napolitano. He said, if you are an illegal alien in California, get a driver's license, register to vote. You can vote in local, state, and federal elections in California, and those votes count. And so the state of California has passed legislation that will automatically register eligible voters when they obtain a new driver's license. Governor Brown says it's a way to increase voter turnout, but critics warn the measure could add millions of illegal people on the rolls. And this has been found. There are illegal aliens who are on the voting rolls and who did vote in the last election in 2016. That's a fact, okay? I've seen that in the news. So multiple people have been caught. There's, of course, multiple dead people who are on the voters' rolls. I mean, there's all kinds of problems across the states with different things. But this is basically all you have to do. And so there are not safeguards. Safeguards. And so people are concerned that illegal aliens could vote. Now, notice that the Democrats in California are not publicly concerned about this at all. They give it no lip service. Some of them seem to almost be bragging about this. And so you can look into the murder of Molly Tippett's, illegal alien, apparently had false ID. Okay, so there is up to 15 million illegal aliens now, as I mentioned in the last podcast. So this is a great concern to many Americans. They're concerned about this. They're concerned about these people taking jobs away. I mean, this is a valid concern. And so I like how President Trump is trying to address this. And I wanted to close today talking about the, a benefit of 9/11, something that we've come, something that we've learned. And I wanted to just share with you that many people forgot or forget that after 9/11 occurred in 2001, church attendance went up dramatically in the United States. I mean, people turned to God for peace and for solace. This was really kind of a stressful time there for a while. And I thought, in our trials, we do sometimes get humbled, and we do turn to God. And I think that is a wonderful blessing. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show, copyright 2018. You guys have a great day.